Hey everyone, in this video I will be showing you how to perform CRUD operations like post, fetch, fetch by ID, update and delete. Also how to post a list in Flask Python with MySQL database. The prerequisite is going to be you must have Python and MySQL installed on your system. If you don't have Python, you can just click on the card that is appearing on top. If you already have it, let's get started. So we'll be requiring 3 steps to complete this. First, writing the connection code as well as creating the MySQL database and table, then writing the post route, and final thing is hitting the post route from our postman. So let's begin with the code. So we'll be requiring 2 packages. One is going to be the Flask package and next one is going to be the MySQL connector. So just open the terminal, new terminal over there, and you need to run the command pip install flask and MySQL -connector -python. Just hit enter. That's it, the packages will be getting installed. Now just go to the folder and create a new file. Let me name it as new.py. So as usual, we will be beginning by importing from our packages. So it's going to be from Flask import Flask with capital F, be careful there, and next one is going to be import MySQL dot connector. That's it, this is going to be our import. Next we will be creating our Flask variable, which is app equal to Flask within bracket __ name, just specifying the default directory over there. And next is we will be achieving this connection with the help of a connection variable. So let me name the connection variable as db equal to MySQL dot connector dot connect. So this is going to be my connection variable, and open circular bracket, and within this only we will be passing our host name, username, password and database. So first is going to be the host name, within single quote it's going to be localhost since we are running in our local system, and next one is going to be the username, user equal to root. This is my username. By default most of you will be also having this. So if you can't figure out what's your username, just go to MySQL Workbench and in the connection right click and you'll be having the edit connection option. Click this and here you can see we will be having the username. So just put it there, and next is going to be the password. So enter your corresponding password. I will enter mine over here, and final thing is going to be the database name. So database, so let's go and create a database in our MySQL Workbench. So just go inside your connection, and this is going to be the command that we will run to create a database. Create database, your database name. My database name is my database. So select this, run it, green mark, and if you refresh it, here you can see my database has been created. Just copy this name and put it over here. That's it, now we are done with our connection variable. Next thing is we will be creating our route, okay, the post path. So go to the next line. For that we'll be defining a function. It's going to be function add student. So I'm going to create a student table and then I'll be inserting value. So I'll just have the function name as add student, and here we will be specifying the route. So it's going to be at app dot, which is basically this Flask variable. We need to use that here. It's going to be route, then circular bracket we need to specify the path. It's going to be slash add student. Basically we will be hitting this path from our postman, and next we will specify the type of operation. For that we'll be using methods equal to post. So we are defining this is a post operation. So we are having get, delete, update, right? So this is a post operation. So this is fine now, and next go inside the function. We'll be getting the data from the postman, right? So from postman we'll be sending some data like this as a request body. So we need to cache that data. So for that we'll be having data equal to request dot get _ JSON. So we need to import this request from Flask, request. Have this, there has gone now. and in the next line we need to get the name and mark. So name equal to data dot get name, mark equal to, I'll just copy this, data dot get mark. So to avoid confusion, let me go and create the table now. So the same my database, the database that I created a moment ago, I will just use that, and I am creating a table named student, which is going to have 3 columns: ID, name and mark. So I'm specifying ID to be auto generated. That's the reason why I'm having auto increment. So we won't be giving this ID value from our postman. Instead we will be only giving name and mark from our request body, like this. So I will just run this. Yeah, table has been created. If I refresh this again, tables, students is there. So columns, ID, name and mark. So now since ID is auto generated, we won't be passing that value. So from our postman request we will be passing only name and mark value. So name and mark values are being passed from here, and in our code we are getting the request and storing it in data. Then we are restructuring that data. We are storing the name from this data in name variable, mark from this data in mark variable. So each value, this value will be stored in name, this value will be stored in mark. That's what's happening here. Simple. And next we will be accessing the cursor object from our connection variable, and with the help of this cursor variable only we will be able to perform or execute MySQL queries. So it's going to be cursor, you can name this variable anything, equal to db, which is my connection variable, db dot cursor within circular bracket, and next we need to specify our SQL query. Alright, so in the next line it's going to be SQL underscore query equal to, within double quotes we'll be writing our insert query. So it's going to be insert into table name. In my case the table name is students. I will just copy this, and within circular bracket you need to specify your column name. So in my case the column names are name and mark. Next is going to be the values space. Here you need to put %yes comma %yes. Okay, so this is how it's going to be, and we will be replacing this %yes with our name and mark values like this. So it will get replaced and this insert query will be running. Okay, and in the next line this is where we will replace. Okay, cursor dot execute, basically we're saying execute this query, and within this we'll be passing our query variable, which is SQL query comma within circular bracket name comma mark. Okay, so name will be going here, inserting in the name column, mark will be going here, inserted into the mark column. Simple. So this value will be getting inserted. So this cursor.execute basically maps the query with the value that we are passing from our postman and then executes it. So simple stuff. And final thing, we have to have db connection variable dot commit. Okay, so without this particular line, after inserting the name and mark into the database, the save operation won't be done. So this basically saves the value permanently in our table. So we have to have this, really important. If you skip this, any changes happening in your table. So make sure that you're adding this connection variable dot commit. And final thing is we will just return a response to postman. Okay, it's going to be return JSONify. So circular bracket and a curly bracket. So we need to import this from Flask as usual, and we can just have something like message, and it could say posted something, and at the end you need to have the status comma 200, which is successful. That refers to successful status. You can have anything over here. You can even send some JSON. You can even send the name and mark here. It's up to you. Final thing is we have to come outside of this function. This is the post function. Just come outside, and we need to have our main function over here. That is the starting of the program. So it's going to be if underscore underscore name, which is the default directory path, equality underscore underscore main. So we are just referring to the code that this is going to be the starting point, okay? And in the next line it's going to be print. We just have a connecting to DB, something like this, just a statement, and we will start our application. It's going to be app, which is the Flask variable, dot run. Inside you can specify the port number, or you can even have debug equal to 2. That's totally up to you. So I'm saving it. This is the code basically, guys, simple stuff. So I'll clear the terminal, and for running this the command is going to be python space your file name .py. Just hit enter. Here you can see the application has started, and by default it's running at port 5000. Okay, so now we need to go to postman. We need to make a few changes over here. First thing is you need to change the operation to post. I guess by default it will be in some other one. Change this to post. Next you need to add this http://localhost, and our port number is 5000. Okay, and just copy this, add student, and put it over here. And next you need to go to body, click on body. You need to go to raw, and you need to select here JSON. So by default it will be in text. You need to select to JSON, and you need to add a curly bracket. Within that you need to have name within double quotes, mark within double quotes, and you need to have the value. And since mark is of type integer, mark is of type int, I'm not specifying here double quotes for mark, and name is of type string. That's why I'm specifying double quotes. So you don't have to specify double quotes for integer. So now everything is set, and if I go to my students table, currently it is empty. Here you can see I don't have any values inside it. So if I just hit this path, I'm getting the response 200, everything is fine. If I rerun this again, here you can see I'm getting the value. And if I go to my Visual Studio Code, here you can see this particular path has been hit. It also says the date, the time, and the operation, and the response status also. So if you want, I can just change the value something, send it, and rerun it, and I'm getting that value, and the ID has been auto generated. I'm only sending the name and mark. So you must also have that in your mind. You must have this int auto increment primary key. You have to have this stuff. Okay, so now let me just create a function for fetching. So it's going to be define, let me have it as fetch all, and I will define a path. So it's going to be at app dot route, and here we have to specify the path. So it's going to be slash fetch all, and we have to make sure that we are giving it as a get method. So we'll be having methods inside this. Within single quote you have to put get. For post it will be something like this, post. Alright, next inside the function we'll be creating the cursor object. So it's going to be cursor variable equal to connection variable, which is db, the connection variable dot cursor, and inside this cursor we will be passing a parameter. So whenever we are fetching the data from the table, we'll be getting it as a tuple. Okay, so then we will be using a for loop, iterate to that tuple and converting that to a normal JSON or a list. So that's kind of like a tedious process. So if we give this particular parameter, we will be directly getting the data from the table as a dictionary. So we need to put here dictionary equal to true. Okay, simple parameter, so that we are avoiding the data being fetched from the table as a tuple, and it also helps in processing the data much more efficiently. And next thing, we'll be using the execute function to execute the SQL query. Okay, so simple SQL query, it's going to be select asterisk from the table name. So here I'm using the database named my database. So if I go to my MySQL database, this is my MySQL database, and inside my connection I'm having a database named my database already created over here. I'm having a table called as students. So this is my table students. I created it with ID, name, and mark, and these are the values that are present inside my table student. Okay, so I'll just copy the student name and put it over here. Select asterisk from your table name, That's it. This is the query. And next we need to get the content, so it's going to be rows equal to cursor dot fetch all. This is a function and it will have all the data that we are fetching it, okay, fetching from here. After this we can just close our cursor variable. It's going to be cursor dot close, and if we close our connection, that is the DB, we will be getting some errors after the second fetch operation. So don't close the connection variable, just close the cursor variable alone, okay. And final thing is we need to return, okay, return and JSONify. So basically we need to import JSONify from Flask also. So this basically converts the data into a JSON format, rows. That's it. So this is basically the code, guys. So simple. Now let's run the code. Go here. For running this, it's going to be python space new.py, basically your file name with the extension. Hit enter, and it has started on the default port 5000. And if I go to my postman, first thing is you need to change the operation to get, and you need to add the URL. It's going to be http://localhost: the port number 5000 / you need to put this path. Put the path over here, and no need of any body, go to none. We don't need anything, any request. So send it, and this time here you can see we are getting the result, and this is the exact same value that is present in our table. So the fetch operation works fine and simple. First thing is define a function, add a path to it, put methods get. Next thing is, with the help of our connection variable DB, we are creating a cursor object and then executing the simplest of SQL queries to select the data from a table. Next we are fetching the data in rows, storing them, closing the cursor, and final thing is just returning the JSON version of the rows. That's it, and we'll be getting the response here. Simple stuff. So let me just write the code for fetching data by ID. So it's going to be define, let me have the function as fetch by ID, and we will be actually getting the ID from the URL. So I'll be passing the ID something like this. So we'll be having the path and we will just send the ID here. So we will be accessing the ID from the URL itself as a parameter. So we will define a path for it. It's going to be at app.route. App is the Flask variable which I showed you earlier, this one, Flask variable. And inside this we need to specify the path. So I'll just have it as /fetch by ID, something like this, and /, and this is where we need to access this number that we are sending from postman. So for that we need to specify the data type. So it's going to be int, then colon, the variable name. So this variable name can be anything. I'm just giving it as ID over here. So this is it. You need to have this particular statement over here. Next thing is we need to pass this ID here also. Just put here ID as a parameter, okay. And after this, come back here, comma, methods equal to square bracket, we need to put get. So we're making sure that this is a get operation because we're fetching data, okay. Now let's jump into the code. So first let me create a cursor variable, cursor equal to our connection variable, this one, connection variable DB equal to DB dot cursor, and we will pass here dictionary equal to 2. So we are passing this because by default it returns data in tuple format, which is quite hard to process. We need to do for loops and create that into a normal list. By using dictionary true, we will be directly getting in a proper structure rather than tuple. Alright, next is cursor dot execute. We'll be writing here our SQL query, which is going to be select asterisk from the table name. So in my case, I'm connecting to my database in my MySQL workbench. So I will go to my MySQL workbench. Here you can see inside my database I'm having a table named as students. So this is the table. So my table name is students here. So I'll just go to the code, select asterisk from students. As usual, we will be using the var clause, something like this, yeah. and we have to put the ID, the column ID equal to, so in my table I'm having the ID column, so I'll put that there, percentage yes, and after the double quotes, comma, circular bracket, ID, comma. So you need to put a comma over here because this is a tuple. If you skip this comma, this won't be considered as a tuple and you may get errors. So put this comma also over here. That's the code. And next line, it's going to be data equal to cursor dot fetch all. So basically we are extracting the data from this cursor object. Let's close the cursor, so it's going to be cursor dot close because we have fetched the data. Okay, so no need of that variable anymore. And final thing is return JSONify data. We're sending it as a JSON back to our postman as a response, and this JSONify comes from Flask. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. Save it, and for running it, it's going to be python filename.py. And now go to postman. First thing is make sure that you're changing the path to get, because it's a fetch operation, and have this path http :/localhost 5000. And next thing is you need to copy the path. So my path over here is fetched by ID. I will just copy this path, put it here, that's it. And I will go with 2, the ID is going to be 2, send it. And here you can see I'm getting the data. So if I go to my table, 2 is this value. If I go with 4, I have to get J over there, send it. I'm getting 4. Basically I'm getting it in the form of a list. And if I go with some random ID, I will go with 10. I'm not having 10 over here. If I send it, I'll be getting an empty one, so it doesn't even throw an error. So basically you can have a check condition or something if it's empty, which means the ID doesn't exist. So first thing, let's just come here and define a function. It's going to be define update data. Let me have a path at app, which is my Flask variable, app dot route, and inside this we have to specify the path. I will just go with update, comma, methods you have to put here as put. Okay, don't put update, it's going to be put operation. And next thing is basically we will be passing ID, name and mark. Okay, we need to pass ID, name and mark, and with the help of ID we will be changing the name and mark. So we will be passing this from our postman's request body. Okay, so we need to pass a JSON, something like this. So in the code basically we will get it from request. So it's going to be ID equal to request, and you need to import request from Flask. Okay, request and JSONify from Flask. So ID equal to request dot JSON dot get ID within single quote. So this ID directly corresponds to this ID that we are passing. So this ID will have the value as 2, so 2 will be stored in this ID variable over here. Same thing applies. I will just copy this, paste it twice. We will do the exact same thing for name and mark. So I will go here, name, and here it's going to be name, and mark here also. This is good. Next, let me create our cursor variable. With the help of this cursor variable only, we will be able to execute SQL query. So it's going to be cursor equal to the connection variable, which is db. So this one, db dot cursor is the function, and next line we'll be writing our query. So query equal to update space the table name. So simple update SQL query. My table name is students, so I'll just go here, students, set the column name. So in my case the column name is name, so make sure that you're specifying the column name over there. Name equal to percentage yes, comma, mark, which is again the column name, equal to percentage yes, and the where clause ID equal to percentage yes. So as I told you, with the help of ID we will be spotting that row, and we will be assigning the name and mark that we sent from our postman and changing it. Simple SQL over here. And final thing is we will be combining our query along with these values that we have sent from postman. So for doing that, it's quite simple. Same cursor object, cursor dot execute function, and inside this we will be passing few parameters. First one is going to be the query that we are having, comma, inside circular bracket you need to pass these values in the same order how they are used in the query. So first %s comes for name, so name goes first, next comes for mark, so mark goes second, and next comes for id, so id goes at the last. So exact same order how you have used over here. If you interchange it, you will be obviously getting an error, or wrong values will be getting inserted or updated in the table. So that's the thing. And final thing is we need to put db.commit so that the changes are getting affected, and you are going to add cursor.close, because once the functionality is done you can just close it, you don't have no purpose to keep it open. And final thing is you can just return JSONify, you can just have a message or something, message saying updated, or you can send any value or a JSON or any acknowledgement that you want, it's up to you, and status 200 for successful. So that's pretty much the code, guys, and let's run it. Don't forget to save the code. It's going to be python your file name.py, and it has started running in localhost 5000. So now I've done everything over here, so let me just do the same over here also. First thing is you need to change the operation to put, really important thing, and copy this path, change the path over here, and you also need to add body, so click on body raw, and it will be in text. You need to change this to JSON, and you need to add the ID also. I will go with ID 4, it has this value going here 4, and you need to have the key within double quotes, and since ID is a number and mark is a number, no double quotes needed for them. But since John is a string, you must have double quotes for John, and the keys by default should have double quotes enclosed within curly bracket, perfect JSON structure over there. So now let me just have a random name. I will go with updated name something, let mark be 85. So here, okay, mark already here is 85, so let me go with 8555, that's fine. And if I send it, I'm getting message updated and no errors here also, successful. And if I go to my workbench, the ID was 4. If I select the table 4, updated name 8555, perfect, it's working perfectly fine. And what if I give ID that isn't present in the table itself? Let me go with 600, this ID is not present. If I send it, I'm getting still 200, but no errors, it's not causing any errors, and no updation operation would have also taken place in the table. So you don't have to have like error handling in case if the user is giving invalid ID. So that's it. So now let's see how we can delete a row by passing the ID. So I'll just come here, it's going to be at app dot, which is our app variable, it's going to be route, and it's going to be /delete, and here I will be passing the ID from the URL itself. For example, it will be something like this. I will just pass the ID from the URL, and we will fetch the ID from the URL and then add it in our query. So that's how we are going to perform the delete operation. So ID, put a comma, it's going to be methods equal to, within square bracket just put delete. So here we are defining that this path corresponds to a delete operation. And come to the next line, it's going to be define delete data, this is going to be the name of the function. And in the next line I'll be creating our cursor object, so it's going to be cursor equal to db, which is my connection variable. So this connection variable that I have used and added all these necessary credentials, this variable dot cursor. So using this cursor variable only we will be able to access or run queries. So in the next line it's going to be our query equal to delete space from your table name. In my case it is students, where id equal to percentage yes, and in the next line it's going to be cursor, the variable that we had created earlier, dot execute, and inside that we need to pass our query variable, query, comma, and we need to pass the id as a tuple, so it's going to be id. You need to put an extra comma over here, so it needs to be like this, and this id is directly coming here. And another important thing, we need to pass here also id. So this id, the naming convention that we have used here should come here also, and the data type should also be coming here also. So make sure that you are using the id in these three places. This id corresponds to the column name. So here if you're having some other column name, you need to be putting that over here. This has no relation with the id that we are passing from our postman. Okay, and the final thing is it's going to be db dot commit, and it's going to be cursor dot close, and at the end you can just have a message. Okay, it's going to be JSONify, and import this JSONify from Flask, and within curly bracket, and say that's going to be message colon. You can just put any message over here. I will just have it as deleted, something like this, and just add close curly bracket, and at the end you can just put a comma and have the status as 200. So that's basically the query, guys. Now save it and make sure that you're also having these things. Yeah, that's fine. Let me just go here, and for starting it's going to be python your file name.py. That's it. It has started on localhost 5000. Now go to postman and make sure that you are changing this to delete, and it needs to be http://localhost:5000, and the path is delete, and we can just have the body as none. We don't need anything, and here you need to pass the id. So in my case I will go with 4. It has this value now, so I'll just put here, rather than 10 I will put 4 and send it. I'm getting deleted. Okay, message spelling is wrong. You can just correct it, the message spelling. And now if I go to the database, I sent here 4, so this won't be there with id 4. So if I now select it, here you can see id 4 is not there. So it's going to be app dot route. Here we are defining our path. Let me have it as post list, and methods is equal to post, because we're just going to perform a simple post operation. We're just going to loop the entire list, and we are going to perform the post operation. It's going to be post, and just come to the next line. It's going to be the function name, and let's just have it as post underscore list, and basically we will be passing the entire list from our postman, and the list will be something like this. Here you can see I'm having a list, and inside that I'm having objects, JSON objects of name and mark. The reason why I'm having name and mark is because in my DB, as you can see here, I'm having ID, name and mark columns in my table. So ID is auto generated, so I'm just passing the name and marks value in this list. So this is how our list will be. It will be having multiple elements as JSON or object. So this is how it should be. So it's going to be request data equal to request.json. So make sure that you are importing this request from Flask. Just have it like this. And next one is going to be the cursor object, cursor equal to db.cursor. And next thing we will be having our query. Okay, simple insert query equal to insert into your table name. In my case the table name is students. Let me just copy this, your table name, and within that you need to pass the column name, comma, mark. So these are the columns that I am having in my table. If you want to do in your style, you can do it, up to your choice. And next it's going to be values, and space %yes comma %yes. So first one corresponds to name, second one corresponds to mark. All right, and next we will be using the for loop. So basically we will put this query inside our for loop, and then we will insert the data from this request data. Okay, we will be iterating this request data, then we will be extracting the name and mark, insert it, extracting the name and mark from the second JSON, insert it from the extracting the name and mark from the third JSON, and insert it. This is how we are going to do it. So it's going to be for student in request data. Basically the request data corresponds to the list. Okay, and inside that we will just have name equal to student dot get, then single quote it's going to be name, and in the next line mark equal to student dot get mark. So this name, the reason why we are having the name within single quote is because this name directly corresponds to this key over here, and mark corresponds to this key over here. So that's how we extract the name and mark. And finally we need to execute the query. For that we'll be using the cursor object, which is from our connection variable db. So this one db, using the cursor object only we will be able to execute queries. Execute, and it's going to be query, this query comma, within circular bracket you need to put name comma mark. Okay, and make sure that you don't change the order, because first %yes is for name, second %yes is for mark. Okay, and after this just come outside the for loop. This loop will run 3 times because we are sending a list of 3 elements. Okay, so it will run 3 times in this case, and here it's going to be db.commit to save our changes permanently. And after this we can just close our cursor object.close, and final thing we can just send a message as a response. It's going to be return JSONify, which we need to import from Flask. Yeah, just import JSONify, and curly bracket it's going to be message, and you can just have list posted, anything, whatever you want, and at the end you can put a comma and add the status as 200, which is successful. So that's basically it, guys. I'll just save it and just restart it. So 5000 and the path is post list, so I'll just go to my postman. First thing, make sure the operation is post, http:/localhost 5000, and put your path over here. And now go to body and change this to JSON, raw and JSON. Okay, and here just have something like this. So this is a curly bracket, and say that you're having name, value, mark, and its value. All right, so this depends basically upon your table structure. I'm having this way, so I'm just going with this way. So let me just go with some values. I'll just have it as list 1. I'm just putting a random name, list 2 something, and let it be something. Okay, so if I send it, okay, we are getting not found. And if I go to the code, and the reason is because I didn't put the at over here, so it's going to be at app inside your post list function, and just restart it. Yeah, and same thing, no changes, and 200. And here you can see I'm getting the message as list posted. And if I go to my table in the database and run it, if I scroll here you can see list 1 780, list 2 80, Sam Wilson, and the ID gets auto generated, and the exact same value 780 and 69. So this is basically how you post a list of JSON in Flask by using MySQL. I hope you have found it useful. Do check the playlist of my channel. I've done a lot of videos in programming and AI tools. Subscribe me. Thanks for watching.